First contact at dawn. The twin moons of Nexus Prime cast their pale light across the crystalline forest as Damien Foster adjusted his atmospheric suit's settings. The xenobotanist hadn't expected to find himself scaling the treacherous slopes of the prismatic range, yet here he was, pursuing rumors of a plant that could revolutionize space travel. Sector 7 analysis complete, he muttered into his recorder. Bioluminescent activity increasing with altitude. Note to self: investigate correlation between crystal formations and plant growth patterns. A sudden flash of movement caught his attention. Through the translucent leaves above, someone, moved with impossible grace. Damien pressed himself against a crystal trunk, his heart racing. First contact protocols were clear: observe, document, retreat. But before he could move, a melodious voice cut through the night air. Your breathing equipment is remarkably loud, human. Though I suppose that's to be expected from such primitive technology. The owner of the voice descended from the canopy like falling starlight. She landed without a sound, her iridescent skin shifting colors in the moonlight. Her features were distinctly humanoid, yet utterly alien, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, each one shifting between deep purple and brilliant gold. I am Nixus of House Stellaris, she announced, her head tilted in what might have been amusement or disdain. And you are trespassing in my family's research grounds. Damien straightened, trying to maintain his dignity. Dr. Damien Foster, xenobotanist with the Earth Science Coalition. I wasn't aware this area was claimed. Our surveys showed no signs of settlement. Of course they didn't. Nixus circled him slowly, her movements fluid like liquid crystal. Our technology operates on principles your species hasn't even begun to comprehend. Though I must admit, I'm curious why a human would venture so far into the prismatic range alone. I'm tracking unusual energy signatures that match theoretical models for quantum botanical interfaces. There are rumors of a flower that he stopped himself, suddenly aware of how her 4 eyes had narrowed with interest. The stellar bloom, she finished for him, a musical laugh escaping her lips. Oh, you amusing creature. Generations of my people have searched for that mythical flower. What makes you think a human could succeed where we have failed? Damien met her gaze steadily. Fresh perspective. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see what's hidden in plain sight. Is that so? Nixus moved closer, her iridescent skin pulsing with patterns that made Damien's head spin. Then perhaps we can make this interesting. Find the stellar bloom within 3 cycles of our moons, and I will share with you knowledge that would advance your species by centuries. Fail, and you leave these mountains, never to return. And if I refuse? Then you leave now, with nothing but the memory of this encounter. She smiled, revealing teeth that sparkled like diamonds. But we both know you won't refuse. Your kind never can resist a challenge, especially when the odds seem impossible. Damien considered his options. The rational choice would be to retreat, report the contact, and let the diplomats handle first contact protocols. But something in those alien eyes sparked his curiosity, not just about the flower, but about her people, their technology, their understanding of the universe. 3 cycles, he agreed. But I have conditions of my own. You share information about the flower's theoretical properties, and you stop interfering with my equipment. Nixus's skin rippled with what might have been surprise. You dare to make demands? I dare to propose a fair exchange. After all, if you're so certain I'll fail, what's the harm? For a long moment, she studied him, all 4 eyes swirling with unreadable emotions. Then she laughed, the sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. Very well, human. You've caught my interest. Though I warn you, the stellar bloom isn't merely rare. It exists in a state between dimensions, appearing only when specific quantum conditions align. Even if you somehow located it, harvesting it would require technology far beyond your current capabilities. I'll worry about that part when I find it, Damien replied, already making mental notes about the flower's properties. Now, about those theoretical properties. As Nixis began to explain, Damien noticed something curious. Despite her apparent disdain, there was an undertone of excitement in her voice, as if she actually wanted him to succeed. Perhaps, he realized, humans weren't the only ones who enjoyed a good challenge.
Challenge of the Crystal Bloom. The first moon of Nexus Prime had barely completed its arc across the sky when Damien made his breakthrough. He sat in his makeshift camp, surrounded by holographic displays showing various spectral analyses of the crystalline forest. Nixis watched from a nearby crystal formation, her 4 eyes tracking his every movement with barely concealed curiosity. "Your methods are unorthodox," she observed as Damien pinned another energy signature pattern to his virtual workspace. "No scanning arrays, no quantum resonance chambers. Just these primitive tools and that peculiar human intuition." Damien smiled without looking up from his work. "Sometimes the simplest approach is best. Your people have been searching for a flower that exists between dimensions, right? But what if that's not exactly correct?" "The ancient texts are quite clear," Nixis replied, though he noticed her skin ripple with interest. "The stellar bloom manifests only when quantum alignments are perfect." "Yes, but what defines perfect?" Damien stood, walking to one of his sensor arrays. "Look at these readings. The crystal formations throughout this range aren't just structures, they're natural quantum processors. Each one is constantly calculating and adjusting to maintain dimensional stability." Nixis glided closer, her iridescent skin pulsing with patterns that matched the data streams. "This is known to us. It's why we established our research grounds here. But did you ever consider that the stellar bloom might not be appearing and disappearing?" Damien turned to face her, his eyes bright with excitement. "What if it's always here, just shifting its quantum signature to match the surrounding crystal matrix?" For the first time since they'd met, Nixis was silent. All 4 of her eyes focused on the data displays, their colors shifting rapidly as she processed the implications. "If what you're suggesting is true," she finally said, "then finding the flower would require understanding its camouflage mechanism," Damien finished. "It's not about waiting for perfect conditions, it's about learning to see through the quantum noise." He pulled up another display, this one showing the overlapping energy fields of the crystal forest. "Your people have been looking for something extraordinary, something that stands out. But the most successful survival adaptations often involve blending in completely." Nixis moved to study the display more closely, her shoulder nearly touching his. The proximity sent tiny static charges through his suit. "These patterns, they're not random interference like we assumed." "No, they're not." Damien highlighted a recurring sequence in the data. "This is a signature that appears every few hours, always in different locations but with the same underlying structure. I think it's your stellar bloom, hiding in plain sight by perfectly mimicking the quantum state of whatever crystal formation it's near." "But that would mean..." Nixis's skin rippled with complex patterns of disbelief and excitement. "That would mean we've been walking past it for generations." "Exactly." Damien couldn't help but grin. "Sometimes you need an outside perspective to question basic assumptions. Your people were looking for something that stood out, something obviously special. But nature's greatest achievements often lie in perfect camouflage." He began packing his portable equipment, checking his suit's power levels. "The next quantum shift should happen in about 2 hours. If I'm right, we can track the flower's signature as it adapts to its new hiding spot." "We?" Nixis raised what might have been an eyebrow. "I don't recall offering to assist you in your search." "True," Damien acknowledged, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "But are you really going to let a primitive human make the discovery of a lifetime without witnessing it firsthand?" A sound like crystal wind chimes filled the air, Nixis's laugh. "Your species has an interesting way of turning formal challenges into collaborative ventures." Very well, human. Let on. Though I warn you, if your theory proves incorrect, you'll have wasted one of your 3 cycles. Fair enough. Damien checked his navigation display. The strongest recent signature came from the upper crystal terraces. We should dash. He stopped as Nixus suddenly placed a hand on his arm. Through his suit, he felt an intense tingling sensation, and his equipment briefly flickered. If we're to climb that high, she said, her skin shifting to match the crystalline environment, you'll need better protection than this primitive suit. Hold still. Before Damien could protest, energy flowed from her touch, creating a shimmering field around his suit. The air inside became noticeably easier to breathe, and his displays stabilized. Quantum shielding, she explained, removing her hand. Consider it my contribution to this collaboration. After all, it would be rather anticlimactic if you succeeded in finding the stellar bloom only to expire from atmospheric exposure. As they began their ascent into the higher reaches of the prismatic range, Damien noticed something had changed in their dynamic. Nixus still made occasional comments about human limitations, but there was a new undertone of respect in her voice. Perhaps she was beginning to understand that different perspectives weren't necessarily inferior ones. The crystal formations grew more complex as they climbed, creating natural archways and spiraling towers that seemed to defy gravity. Damien's enhanced suit picked up increasing levels of quantum activity, and Nixus's skin began to pulse in synchronized patterns with their surroundings.
Understanding alien hearts. The highest terrace of the prismatic range was a maze of intersecting crystal formations, each one thrumming with quantum energy that made Damien's enhanced suit tingle. He and Nixus had been tracking the strange energy signature for hours, following its path through the crystalline landscape as it shifted and changed. There's something different about these formations, Damien said, consulting his readings. The quantum signatures are more complex, almost like they're communicating, Nixus finished, her 4 eyes swirling with intense colors. These are ancient growth patterns. Some of these crystals have been calculating quantum variables for millennia. Damien watched as she placed her hand on a nearby crystal spire. Her iridescent skin began to pulse in rhythm with the formation's energy field, creating patterns that seemed to flow between her and the crystal. You can interface with them directly, he observed, fascinated by the display. Is that an ability all your people have? Nixus was quiet for a moment, still connected to the crystal. Not all. House Stellaris has always had a particular affinity for the quantum realm. It's why we were chosen as guardians of these research grounds. She withdrew her hand, turning to face him. Though I must admit, none of us ever considered your theory about the stellar bloom's camouflage mechanism. Sometimes expertise can be a limitation, Damien said, checking his equipment's readings. When you know too much about how something should work, it's harder to imagine how it could work differently. Is that another piece of human wisdom? There was no mockery in her tone now, only genuine curiosity. More like a common human experience. We've spent most of our history being told things were impossible, then finding ways to do them anyway. He smiled. It's probably why we're so bad at taking no for an answer. I've noticed, Nixus said dryly, but her skin rippled with what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. Your persistence is either your species' greatest strength or its most dangerous flaw. Perhaps both. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden surge in quantum activity. The crystal formations around them began to pulse with increasing intensity, creating waves of light that rippled through the terrace. The next shift is beginning, Damien announced, quickly adjusting his sensors. If we're right about the camouflage pattern. There. Nixus pointed to a small cluster of crystals near the edge of the terrace. Unlike the other formations, these seemed to be shifting slightly out of sync with their surroundings. They approached carefully, Damien's instruments recording everything while Nixus's skin pulsed in response to the quantum fluctuations. As they drew closer, something extraordinary began to happen. The air between the crystals appeared to fold in on itself, creating a space that somehow existed between moments. Incredible, Nixis breathed, all four of her eyes fixed on the phenomenon. The quantum signature isn't just similar to the crystals, it's creating a feedback loop with them. The flower isn't hiding among the formations. It's using them to exist in multiple states simultaneously, Damien finished, his scientific excitement barely contained. That's why no one could find it before. It's not just camouflaged, it's quantum-locked with the entire crystal network. He began adjusting his sensors, trying to get a clearer reading of the space between spaces. The question is, how do we interact with something that's only partially existing in our dimension? Nixis studied the phenomenon intently, her skin patterns becoming increasingly complex. Perhaps we're still thinking too conventionally. You showed me that finding the flower required a different perspective. Maybe interacting with it does as well. She turned to face him, her expression serious. The quantum shielding I gave your suit, it's not just protection. It's a way of synchronizing your quantum signature with the local dimensional frequency. If we could adjust it to match the flower's resonance pattern, we could exist in the same quantum state, Damien realized, already understanding where she was going. But wouldn't that be dangerous? Extremely, she admitted. Quantum state synchronization is delicate even for my people. For a human. Her skin rippled with concern. The risks would be significant. Damien looked at his readings, then at the shimmering space between the crystals where reality itself seemed to blur. How long would we have? Moments at most. Any longer and the quantum displacement could cause cellular degradation. She moved closer, her voice dropping. Damien, you don't have to do this. You've already proven your theory correct. The stellar bloom exists exactly as you predicted. That alone is a remarkable achievement. He appreciated her concern, but his mind was already racing with calculations. The potential applications of this discovery go way beyond winning a challenge. If we can understand how the flower maintains stable quantum states, it could revolutionize everything from space travel to energy production. He met her gaze steadily. Sometimes you have to risk everything to advance understanding. Nixis's skin pulsed with a pattern he hadn't seen before, something between admiration and worry. Your species' dedication to discovery is either incredibly brave or utterly reckless. Why not both? Damien grinned, then became serious. I'll need your help to adjust the quantum shielding. Your understanding of the mechanics combined with my theory about the flower's nature, it's the perfect synthesis of our different perspectives. She studied him for a long moment, all four eyes swirling with complex emotions. Finally, her skin settled into a determined pattern. Very well. But we do this precisely as I instruct. I didn't go through all the trouble of keeping you alive just to watch you dissolve into quantum particles. Quantum bonds. The crystal formations hummed with increasing intensity as Nixis made the final adjustments to Damien's quantum shielding. Her touch left trails of light across his suit's surface, each point of contact creating ripples in the local dimensional fabric. The synchronization has to be perfect, she explained, her four eyes focused intently on her work. Too slow, and you won't fully phase into the flower's quantum state. Too fast. Her skin rippled with concern. Well, let's maintain the optimal frequency. Damien monitored his suit's readings, watching as the quantum harmonics aligned closer to the strange space where the stellar bloom existed. The energy patterns are becoming clearer. It's like seeing through layers of reality. That's the quantum harmonization taking effect, Nixis confirmed. Your consciousness is beginning to perceive multiple dimensional states simultaneously. How do you feel? Like my brain is trying to think in 5 dimensions at once, Damien admitted. But I'm stable. The suit's holding up better than expected. Your human technology is more adaptable than we assumed. Nixus's skin pulsed with what might have been approval. Though the quantum shielding modifications certainly help. Are you ready for the next phase? Damien took a deep breath, watching the space between the crystals where reality seemed to fold in on itself. Walk me through it one more time. When I activate the final resonance sequence, you'll have approximately 3 minutes before the quantum displacement begins affecting your cellular structure. Her voice took on a formal tone, but her skin betrayed her concern with rapid pulses of worried patterns. You need to reach into the quantum pocket, establish contact with the stellar bloom, and withdraw before the harmonization breaks down. And if I take too long? Then I lose my first interesting human research subject. She attempted humor, but her skin patterns revealed genuine fear. Please don't make me explain to your Earth Science Coalition how I accidentally dissolved their xenobotanist across multiple dimensions. I'll do my best to stay in one dimension, Damien promised. He checked his instruments one final time, then nodded. I'm ready. Nixus placed both hands on his suit, and Damien felt the quantum shielding surge with power. The world around him began to shift, reality becoming fluid as his perception expanded to encompass multiple quantum states. The crystal formations seemed to exist in several places at once, their energy patterns weaving complex tapestries through dimensions he previously couldn't perceive. Remember, Nixus's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Your human consciousness will try to make sense of what you're seeing by translating it into familiar patterns. Don't fight it, but don't let it distract you either. Focus on the resonance frequency I showed you. Damien stepped toward the quantum pocket, his movements feeling both instant and eternal. The space between the crystals opened like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing layers of reality folding into each other. And there, existing in all and none of them, was the stellar bloom. It was both more and less than he had imagined. The flower seemed to be made of pure quantum potential, its petals shifting between states of matter and energy. As he reached toward it, he saw variations of himself doing the same across multiple timelines, each movement creating ripples through the quantum field. Remarkable, he breathed, his scientific mind racing to catalog everything despite the overwhelming sensory input. The flower isn't just adapting to quantum states, it's actively manipulating them. It's like it's dancing between realities. Damien, Nixus's voice held a note of urgency. Your quantum harmonization is starting to fluctuate. Whatever you're going to do it now. He could feel it, a growing instability in his cellular structure as the quantum displacement began taking its toll. But he was so close. The stellar bloom seemed to respond to his presence, its quantum signature shifting to match his harmonized state. Just as his fingers were about to make contact, something unexpected happened. The flower's quantum field suddenly expanded, enveloping both him and Nixus in its multidimensional embrace. Damien felt his consciousness expand exponentially, connecting with Nixus's mind across quantum states. In that moment of connection, understanding flowed between them like a torrent. He experienced fragments of her memories, the crystal cities of her people, the weight of generations of scientific knowledge, the lonely duty of guarding ancient secrets. She, in turn, felt his burning curiosity, his joy in discovery, his willingness to risk everything for understanding. This is impossible, Nixus's thoughts echoed through their quantum bond. No other species has ever achieved quantum resonance with our consciousness. Maybe, Damien thought back, his mind struggling to process the vast input of information, that's because no other species was crazy enough to try. Through their shared perception, they both understood something profound about the stellar bloom. It wasn't just a flower that existed between dimensions, it was a bridge between different forms of consciousness, different ways of perceiving reality. Its true purpose wasn't to be found or harvested, but to facilitate understanding between different forms of life. The realization came just as Damien's quantum harmonization began to break down. Nixus felt it through their connection and acted instantly, using her natural quantum abilities to help stabilize his cellular structure. Together, they carefully withdrew from the flower's quantum field, their consciousness gradually separating but forever changed by the experience. As reality settled back into its normal parameters, Damien found himself on his knees, his suit smoking slightly but intact. Nixis knelt beside him, her skin displaying patterns he could somehow still partially understand: concern, relief, and something deeper, more profound. That, he managed to say between ragged breaths, was definitely worth risking dimensional dissolution for. Nixis's laugh was like crystal wind chimes in a quantum storm. Only a human would nearly unravel their existence across multiple dimensions and consider it a success. But her skin patterns told him she was deeply impressed, and perhaps a little shaken by what they'd experienced.
Legacy of Two Worlds. The grand meeting chamber of House Stellaris sparkled with crystalline light as Damien stood before the Council of Quantum Elders. 3 cycles had passed since his encounter with the stellar bloom, but the quantum resonance patterns in his cellular structure still lingered, visible to the assembled aliens as a subtle shimmer beneath his skin. "What you propose is unprecedented," the Chief Elder declared, her multifaceted eyes shifting through spectrums of light. "A joint research initiative between our peoples, focused on quantum biological interfaces." "The stellar bloom showed us something remarkable," Damien replied, feeling Nixis's supportive presence beside him. "It's not just a botanical curiosity, it's proof that different forms of consciousness can synchronize across quantum states. The implications for both our species are enormous." "And dangerous," another elder interjected, his skin pulsing with warning patterns. "Our quantum knowledge has been protected for millennia. To share it with a species that still thinks in linear dimensions is exactly what we need." Nixis stepped forward, her 4 eyes bright with conviction. "Our encounter with the stellar bloom revealed something we've ignored in our pursuit of quantum perfection: the value of different perspectives." She gestured to the holographic displays showing their combined research data. "Look at what we've already learned. Human intuition combined with our quantum understanding has opened pathways we never considered." Damien's theory about quantum camouflage wasn't just correct, it's revolutionizing our understanding of dimensional interfaces. The chamber hummed with quantum energy as the elders communicated in frequencies beyond human perception. Damien waited patiently, remembering how Nixis had helped him understand that what seemed like silence to him was often filled with complex exchanges of information. Finally, the Chief Elder spoke again. "We have reviewed the quantum echoes of your shared experience with the stellar bloom. The depth of consciousness synchronization you achieved, it should not have been possible. Yet it happened. Perhaps." Her skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. "Perhaps this is why the flower has eluded us for so long. It was waiting for the right combination of perspectives." "The stellar bloom isn't just a bridge between dimensions," Damien explained, "it's a bridge between different ways of thinking. Its quantum camouflage wasn't meant to hide it from us, but to test our ability to see beyond our own assumptions. And now you believe our peoples should follow its example." The skeptical elder's skin pulsed with uncertainty. "Merge our understanding of quantum mechanics with human intuition." "Not merge," Nixis corrected. "Synchronize. Like the flower, we can exist in harmony while maintaining our unique perspectives. The quantum resonance patterns we've documented prove it's possible." Damien stepped forward, his modified suit humming softly with quantum energy. "Since our encounter with the stellar bloom, I've been able to perceive quantum states in ways no human ever has before. And Nixis has gained insights into linear problem solving that have enhanced her quantum abilities. We're living proof that our differences can be complementary rather than contradictory." The chamber fell silent again as the elders deliberated. Damien felt Nixis's hand brush against his suit, sending familiar tingles of quantum energy through his enhanced nervous system. Through their lingering connection, he sensed her mixture of hope and anxiety. "The council has reached a decision," the Chief Elder announced, her skin displaying formal patterns. "The quantum barriers between our peoples will be lowered, gradually and under strict protocols. A joint research initiative will be established here in the prismatic range, with House Stellaris as its guardian." She fixed all her eyes on Damien. You, Dr. Foster, will serve as the human liaison, assuming your Earth Science Coalition agrees. Your unique quantum resonance makes you ideally suited to bridge our different approaches to understanding. And you, Nixis, she turned to her kindred, will continue to work with Dr. Foster, exploring the implications of your shared discovery. Your experience with human consciousness synchronization is unprecedented in our history. As the formal announcement continued, Damien reflected on how far they'd come from that first challenging encounter. What had started as a seemingly impossible task had evolved into something far more significant, a fundamental shift in how two species might learn from each other. Later, standing on the crystal terrace where they'd first found the stellar bloom, Damien and Nixis watched the twin moons rise over the prismatic range. The flower's quantum signature pulsed gently in its pocket of reality, no longer hiding but serving as a reminder of what was possible when different perspectives aligned. Your people may find this joint initiative challenging, Nixis observed, her skin displaying amused patterns. We aren't the easiest species to work with. And humans can be frustratingly unpredictable, Damien replied with a smile. But that's exactly why this will work. The stellar bloom showed us that the greatest discoveries happen when we push beyond our comfortable ways of thinking. A very human perspective, she noted, her 4 eyes swirling with affection. Though I must admit, your species' habit of turning impossible challenges into stepping stones has a certain, quantum elegance to it. The crystal formations around them hummed with harmonic energy, responding to their synchronized quantum states. Through their lingering connection, they both sensed the potential of what they'd started, a future where different kinds of consciousness could learn from each other while celebrating their unique ways of understanding the universe. Above them, the stellar bloom continued its quantum dance between dimensions, no longer a myth to be chased but a symbol of what could be achieved when curiosity overcame prejudice, and impossible challenges became bridges between worlds.